was talking about this week how he feels like quarterback play isn't where it's supposed to be in the NFL. And he's talking about the whole conversation around the quarterback. It's too much around arm talent instead of what they're doing off the field, what they're doing in preparation, kind of talking about what makes a great quarterback a great quarterback. And it's not just arm strength. And I thought about it, and you think of Brady's era. What do you think about? You think of Brady, you think of Manning, you think of Roethlisberger, you think of Rodgers, you think of Breeze, and then okay, you have your Staffords, you have your Matt Ryan, you have Eli Manning in there who won 2 Super Bowls. And then you have your interchangeables like Michael Vick was relevant for a time. Now, when you think about the top five, so that's like a legitimate top five, right? That's like
Yeah.
set in stone. It's
Yeah.
Brady, Manning, Ben, Rodgers, Breeze. 5 guys, doesn't really move that much. We all agreed those were the 5 best guys. Now it's like Mahomes,
Everybody else.
like who is it?
It seems like it changes every year because beginning of last season, it was Joe Burrow, pretty much locked in, or you could put maybe a Josh Allen there, and then or even Jalen Hurts, who obviously made the Super Bowl there with him. But now at this point, if we go through that top five, like the first one's going to be solidified. It's Patrick Mahomes, but then number two, you could put Joe Burrow, you could put Lamar Jackson, you can put CJ Stroud, you can put all these different people, and is that more of a testament to the greatness of Patrick Mahomes, or is that more about the rest of the league at this point?
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. However, we still had that solid, I feel like 2 through 5 set in stone, where now you have people like, is Dak Prescott a top 5 quarterback? Well, Joe Burrow is number 2. He's the only one to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs outside of Tom Brady. He's gone in Kansas City twice, and it's been a 1 possession game each time there. His only real question is, can he stay healthy? Then you have Lamar Jackson, where same thing. Can Lamar stay healthy? He's won an MVP twice now. However, he looks completely lost when he goes to Kansas City. And then we have Jared Goff, who can be thrown in the mix a little bit. Josh Allen, who just can't get it done in the playoffs, similar to Peyton Manning, which is fine, but it's just like you don't have that clear number 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just 2 up in the air and 2 up for debate. And then does that come down to coaching, or does that come down to how players prepare? Where Tom Brady's like, okay, I've seen guys go out there where maybe if their coaching isn't as good, they're throwing to other receivers, but that's not benefiting the team because they're not throwing to their guys and building the chemistry, where Brady built Edelman into an amazing receiver. He built someone into Chris Hogan, who was supposed to be a rugby player, I believe, to a guy who was like, oh, wow, Chris Hogan actually showed up and made a play. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it is interesting to see. Um, I think with all these different players that you mentioned in the 2000s, right? Tom Brady, at one point, there was an argument between him and Peyton Manning and who was better. And if you look at the regular season stats, Peyton Manning arguably had better numbers. And then Aaron Rodgers, he had something that wasn't seen before. Drew Brees had the numbers as well. Big Ben, big physical quarterback we hadn't seen before. But in this year, I think you have Patrick Mahomes, so you can't really poke a lot of holes in. But then you see Joe Burrow, he's number 2, but injury issues. Lamar Jackson, but doesn't show up in the playoffs. Josh Allen, but turnovers. Jalen Hurts, but consistency. Like
Yeah.
every player you can poke a hole in. CJ Stroud,
But young, hasn't done it yet.
but young, only 1 year under his belt. So a lot of these players that you could put in these upper echelons, you really can't because either there's not enough of a track record or there's something that's weighing down on them. And then you can even if you go with someone like Aaron Rodgers today, he's old and he hasn't played all of last season and the year before that. He wasn't a top 5 quarterback either. So there's not really anybody else who has been as consistent as Patrick Mahomes either. Where I feel like in the 2000s, these players were much more consistent because it wasn't about mobility and it was more about the process
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. And with Mahomes, it's like you make a good point where it's like, all right, Brady had the Super Bowl, but Manning had the numbers. And then there was a brief moment where it was Joe Burrow and Mahomes, and then Burrow didn't get it done in the Super Bowl. Stafford got his win with all the help he had in LA. And then Joe Burrow loses and then he gets hurt the next year. And then it's okay, is it Lamar? No. Is it Josh Allen? No, because like Lamar has had more MVPs than Josh Allen, and you could argue more playoff success than Josh Allen. But Josh Allen, he doesn't have the injury issues. He has a better arm there, so it's like I feel like there's no real solidified tier one quarterbacks outside of Patrick Mahomes at this time. If you're being a tough NFL critic.
Yeah, and obviously the Brickyard, having the documents that we have to talk about the tough questions there, you know?
Yeah, and so like it did like kind of make me think like when Brady said that, I'm like, yeah, there was like a legitimate top five, and I feel like if you make an argument for a top five, it's like okay, like I'm not gonna like necessarily disagree with you if you have like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Mahomes, and CJ Stroud, and then you could put someone could put Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts,
Herbert.
and Herbert in there. So it's like a lot of different people, and then you have these players like Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, who you feel like are underachieving throughout their careers. So I feel like a lot of this does come down to coaching, and it comes down to the players' willingness to work with their own receivers because those are going to be the quarterbacks that succeed. Because if you work out with other guys in the offseason, Brady makes a good point where you're not really building that continuity and it doesn't benefit the team. It's only benefiting your skills, which is fine, but that's not necessarily going to translate to the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is starting to be a shift in player on player trainings together with players on each other's team. Obviously, Mahomes training with his guys. I believe he started training with Xavier Worthy. And with it being a copycat business, I do think that it's going to carry over to these other guys.
Yeah. So, what do you think of the current quarterback landscape in the NFL? What do you think of Brady's comments right now? I think it was interesting, made me think a little bit, and kind of where we are in the NFL landscape right now as far as quarterbacks.